just because you love the work that you do does not mean that it loves you back. A lot of people are sort of questioning a lot of things. What parts of my job energize me? What parts of my job drain me?
But there's a lot of skills that I feel are so valuable to society right now. How do you tell that story?
Your career has passion and has abilities. You can't really have one or the other.
There's ageism. Now this person's expensive because they're mid to late career.
I went in being like, this is an interesting area. I didn't start by, I need to fix my resume. I need to start applying for these jobs.
If you've ever felt stuck or burnt out in your career, this episode is like having a coffee date with a girlfriend who's been through it and knows exactly how to help you turn things around. Making a career transition is a big deal, and my guest, career transition coach Ibiyemi Balogoun, gets it. In this episode, she helps us rethink our next career steps with reflection, research, and a whole lot of self-care, because you deserve to thrive, not just survive. I'm Dr. Beatrice Seguin, PhD, and you've landed on my podcast this time of the month, your trusty sidekick to the midlife roller coaster. I chat with experts digging into legit solutions for midlife hurdles, be it health or lifestyle. Ready for the ride? Dive into this time of the month. Subscribe and catch the latest episodes on our channel. Let's own this midlife magic together. Women 40 to 55, particularly my Gen X peers, are experiencing significant career transitions. Some by choice and some by forced circumstances. This period is often coinciding with midlife reevaluation, leading many to seek more meaningful or more flexible career options as their next step. That is why we've invited Ibiyemi Balogoun, MBA, CHRP, CCS, and owner of Foot in the Door Consulting. She's a career transition coach, and she specializes in mid-career and unfulfilled career wishes. So welcome, Ibiyemi.
Thank you.
I'm so excited you're here.
Very excited to be here.
I think I found you on LinkedIn because your content just spoke to me.
I'm glad.
Yeah, we started chatting, messaging, and here we are.
Very excited to be here. Content is something that I started really sharing more in the last 5 years, and people seem to be resonating, so I'm glad it worked.
It definitely did, and that's why I think it's important for our listener to hear your journey.
Yes. Ooh, so where do I begin? I started my career about 10 years ago. I started in the diversity recruitment space, so really working with people that had some type of challenge to employment. So it was, new grads that didn't have any sort of career expertise. I was working with people that had disabilities, working with newcomers to Canada that didn't have Canadian experience. And I really just loved the recruitment aspect of things, finding people jobs. But lots of people were making mistakes. They were making lots of mistakes. And I really just wanted to be the person to guide them through before they actually got to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would get on the call, do a recruitment call, and do an interview and realize that that person was not going to get the job. At the end of the day, I'd call them up and say, hey, here's why you're not going to get the job.
Wow, not a lot of people do that.
I know. Here's all the things that you should have said. Here's how you should have positioned yourself, this, that, and the other. And ultimately, they would get jobs. And then they would tell their friend and their coworker, and different people started finding about my program. And I was doing this completely free for about 2 full years before a friend of mine was like, you're really good at this. You should probably monetize this in some way. So in 2017, I did. And it's been a journey. I've had many full-time jobs in between. Still supporting people in their career development. And then last year, I mentioned this to you earlier, I went through a pretty rough time at work. I was, in a new job, I was a new manager, I was, building up a team, but I didn't have a lot of support from my leaders. And unfortunately, I went through a pretty bad sort of experience with burnout. And, I ended up taking 3 months off and like a medical leave. Mm-hmm. And then, a month into that 3 months, I realized that I just couldn't go back. So I decided to take a massive step, quit my job and go into my business full time. And I made obviously that transition, and that's the transition I talk about a lot through my LinkedIn content and on my social media that people tend to resonate with. So not only do I help people make transitions, I have made several transitions as well.
I think you also mentioned you live on 2 continents now. So Canada being North America.
Yes. So in quitting my job, I spoke to my financial advisor and he was like, okay, so you quit your job. You can survive for about a full year while you build your business, but it'll be tight. Picked up the phone and called my mom back home in Nigeria. She'd been wanting me to come home. And I was just like, Mom, I have a job, I have a life. I can't just come home for a year. And ultimately, I decided to do that. And I packed up my bags, I booked a one-way ticket, and I went home to Nigeria just to rest and recover into sabbatical. I saw my niece grow up. It was amazing. And 9 months later, I came back to Canada, and I really wanted to solidify myself just in the Canadian market again and like repatriate to the society. And then I recognized that because I work for myself, I can live anywhere. So I decided about 2 weeks ago that I'm going to try and live a little bit of a bicontinental snowbird type of lifestyle. So
that's
6
exciting.
months in Nigeria, 6 months in Canada when it gets cold, and going from there.
I want to go back to the burnout for a second.
Go ahead.
Some people may not recognize they're feeling burnout. Do you want to give us some signs?
100%. 100%. So burnout isn't just tiredness.
Yeah.
You're not just tired, right? I think a lot of people chuck it up to, it's busy at work, it's a busy season, I'm just tired. It's actually a chronic condition, right? It affects your mental health, it affects your physical health, it affects everything about yourself. You start to sort of get emotionally detached from your relationships, and it usually starts in the workplace. So you're typically overworked and underpaid, or you can be paid adequately but still doing way too many hours in the workplace. You may be fighting against some type of opposition. So I mentioned earlier that the leaders that I worked with didn't necessarily gel with my style. It could also be given sort of a really ridiculous assignment at work, right? It's great to have your main job, and then sometimes there's the side of desk work that comes up that we often don't get credit for, we don't get recognized for, we don't get compensation for. So it also builds that resentment. So you're just on this hamster wheel of just like go, get out, go in, get out, go in, get out. And you wake up one day and it's been 3 months, it's been 6 months. You don't remember the last time you did something for yourself. You don't remember the last time you paid attention to your relationships. And it really, really does affect you. So for me, that looked like not being able to sleep properly. I do have some hormonal issues as us women go through, and ended up having to really pay attention to my health because stress directly affects me. So weight gain, weight loss, acne, hair problems. I had a trapped nerve, so I had to go see a chiropractor. It just was not...
there was a lot happening.
It was not great.
I feel like a lot of women would relate to those things. And it took a quite serious health event for you to not be able to work. What's your advice on not waiting for that event?
Yes.
To recognize it and change something about it?
100%. Reflection is the most important thing, right? So at the end of every day, at the end of every week, just going through and really reflecting on how the day went. So you're trying to you're trying to put yourself in your own story, right? You're not just going through the motions. So reflection is going to be really, really important to do that. One of my mentors told me, she said, I would never forget this. She said, you can be extremely engaged in your work, but still extremely dissatisfied. And that blew my mind completely because I was like, well, I love my job. I love the people I support and like I'm making impact. Like all these things are great. So why am I feeling this way? And I find that unfortunately, I was gaslighting myself, right? I was not okay. But because I loved the work that I was doing, I discounted it. I discounted how I felt, right? And that really is something that I help my clients work through. Just because you love the work that you do does not mean that it loves you back.
Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson to learn.
And I think there's also fear
100%.
of what's the alternative.
The thing about burnout is you are not able to make good decisions when you're burnt out.
Yeah.
You're not even able to see what is happening in front of you. So my first line of defense with burnout is absolutely take a step back. Like literally you need to remove yourself completely from the situation. If that is through short-term disability, unpaid leave, sabbatical, what have you, that is the first step because you're not going to be able to inch your way through recovery. You need to completely remove yourself, reflect, and then plan for what's coming up.
I feel like I'm not sure people would have the either self-awareness or is the word courage to do that because it can feel quite scary. So typically when people come to you, what are their their reasons for wanting to make a change?
100%. They usually use the word unfulfillment, right? Okay. They're just like, I just don't feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
Right? There's that's one side of things. Or the health side of things, right? Where it's just, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I have hormonal imbalance. And like, again, based on me sharing my story, people feel very comfortable sharing their story. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know that I think that I want to do this in the next 2 years. Like a lot of people are sort of questioning a lot of things by the time they come to me.
Do people come to you if also I've mentioned, I've really noticed in the especially 47 to 52 range, top of your career game, increase in confidence, I think due to some of those hormonal changes. It's a positive thing coming into your power, but then you're seen as difficult. So do you have people coming to you where they're either flat out terminated for whatever reason, but in many other examples, it's not terminated, it's more, I call it squeezed out, pressured out.
Yes. I actually recently had a client that was going through something like that at work. 20 years at the organization, right? Growing, ranked high, and, suddenly got a boss that just did not like that growth. So much so that she had to take a complete step back and go on leave. While she was on leave, she got a call saying that she was terminated. So I 100% see it, right? And it comes as a shock because like there's no sort of rhyme or reason to it, right? And before you know what's going on, you're having to make all these changes to yourself, which is why I always tell people, you really need to reflect. You don't want things to happen to you as a result of a toxic environment. You want to really be able to take control in that. And that even looks like, self-reflection is great, but asking your friends and your family to kind of have that like ability to check you. So that's what happened to me. A lot of my friends were like, you're not okay. I love you, you're not okay. No, but I love my job, my students, my clients. She's like, that's amazing. You're not okay. What can we do about it? And that was honestly like such a game changer for me.
So how do we help someone overcome that block of, I'm okay, I'm okay, and avoid that more shocking situation?
Yes.
Yeah, what's the sweet spot? What's your advice there?
The sweet spot is, one, booking a call with me, but really having a conversation, right? So reflection, like honestly, I know I keep saying reflection, but the truth is some people don't stop to ask themselves any questions. And if you ask yourself a few questions, not a lot of questions, just like, am I happy in this job? Is this what I want to do for the next year? right? How am I feeling on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
What parts of my job energize me? What parts of my job drain me, right? The minute you start doing that kind of reflection, it'll start with, oh, it's my boss. Okay, cool. Why is it your boss? Like asking further questions is really important. Another thing I ask people to do is I ask them to reflect on their beliefs about their stress. That's really, really important. I see this a lot with women, moms, first daughters. I see this a lot where it's like not just work stress, family stress, right?
Yes.
And you're thinking to yourself, well, you know, I'm the first daughter, so if my siblings need anything, I'm gonna be the first person to like answer them and what have you. And you know, that's fine, that's not work, that's just family. Okay, that's work.
It's work, it's unpaid work, it's a burden.
It's work. And
Yeah.
if you don't recognize that, you're gonna shortchange that. And again, it's just like you're building up this resentment that you don't know is happening. And then all of a sudden the dam breaks and you're not able to function.
Okay, so we start asking these questions.
Yes.
Then you realize, I want to make a change. I'm mid to late career. Now there's a lot of daunting tasks there.
Yes.
And we're very fortunate at this time of the month, we get community questions often. And as I mentioned, peers, you know, community members are going through this. And it's like, if you've been doing something that you've loved, you're good at for a long time, are you pigeonholed? Or is that a perception? How do you move forward? Where's the starting point
Yes.
to find that next thing?
The starting point is reflection. Because the minute you reflect, the minute you realize, you ask yourself a few questions, right? You identify some answers, right? So let's say you start with, okay, this is, I'm being pigeonholed. It's my boss that's pigeonholing me, right?
Pigeonholed or pigeonholed. And I also mean, if you're going to branch out now, you have to, most people have to work. You can't just have the luxury of not working.
Yes.
So how do you reposition yourself? And if you feel you're trapped in a category, type of work or industry, how does a person work through that?
The thing I always tell my clients is that your career, like a sustainable long-term career, has two things. It has passion and has abilities. You can't really have one or the other, right? So your passion is obviously things that you like, things that you're naturally good at, like the things that personality-wise, like gel with you, right? Your abilities are your skill sets, right? The things that you know that you can do, right? If those two things are not sort of intersecting always, you're gonna have situations where you're misaligned, right? So if you have all this interest and passion for healthcare, but you didn't pass med school, no one's gonna hire you. Right? On the flip side, if you are, really good at analyzing financial spreadsheets, but you have no interest, you're gonna burn out, you're gonna be miserable, you're gonna quit. So in the questioning and the reflection, you're asking yourself, do those two things align?
What am I good at?
Right?
What can I get paid for?
Exactly, the whole ikigai thing. That thing, it's tried and true, right? And it works, right? So that's the first step, really going back to basics. The next step is asking yourself and being brutally honest. How have you made your career choices thus far? Have you focused on status? Have you focused on the money? Have you focused on what just family said? Oh, my mom said I needed to be a lawyer, so therefore I became a lawyer.
Yeah.
Or everyone in my family works in insurance, therefore it was a family business. And how have you made all of those choices? Scarcity is a big one that I see as well, right? I'm making all these choices because I need to get this on my resume. I need to show that I'm this. And my whole thing is about you should care more about how your life feels more than how it looks, right? So you identify your passions and abilities, and then you get honest about how you've made your choices so far. And then you have to redefine success, right?
What are your metrics of success?
Exactly. So I take my clients through something I call a decision-making matrix,
Okay.
where we talk about your career wants, your career needs, and your career non-negotiables. And we go through a specific criteria around all the specific things that you need in your next opportunity. And then we commit to it, meaning before you even look on the job board, before you even have a single conversation, you need to really identify what it is that you want. Before you apply for a job, you need to check it with your matrix. If you know that it does not fit your matrix, don't even apply.
Is this matrix shareable? Do you have it on your
100%.
website?
Yeah, it's on my website.
We'll put a link for our listener, and I think that's really good advice. There's a fear response. I myself have gone through a late career transition, and fear is one of shock, fear, sadness, anxiety.
Yeah.
And so the career matrix sounds really like an interesting exercise to do.
Yes.
So once we have that, then there's the daunting task of, say, networking or searching for your next thing.
Even before you start to search, there's still work to be done.
All right, walk us through that.
Right? Research is what you need to do at that point, right? So in entrepreneurship school, they always tell us you need to really start with researching the problem that you have before you go to product, right? And I say the same thing with your career. Before you go to market with, I am this, I can do this is what I want, you need to do the research. So all this time with your reflection, with your matrix, you're doing research on yourself, right? But now you need to do research on the external environment, right? This is just basic economics, demand and supply. You're the supply of talent, the demand for talent is out there. So now you need to do that research to find out what jobs, what careers are people paying for right now? What is hot, for lack of a better word, in the market right now? Where are these jobs located? How are they positioned? Are they mostly remote? Are they hybrid? Like all of those things you then need to do. Once you then do that research, you basically pair it with your matrix and you find the middle ground, right? What people do a lot is they start externally.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Tech is growing right now. I'm gonna go into tech, and you go pay $15,000, $20,000 for this boot camp to get into tech and code, never once asking yourself, do I care about this? So you do that research, you do the second research, and then ultimately you start fine tuning what it is that you want exactly.
I think there's also the common mistake of thinking you need to stay in the same thing.
Yes.
That you've been doing
100%.
or that you're good at.
Exactly.
So how can you take your skill set, so you check the matrix, so your supply and demand.
Yes.
Now you have a sense.
Yes.
How do you market yourself?
Yes.
Especially, and I really mean this, mid to late career, let's just be real for a second. There's ageism, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. It's there.
Yeah, no, I get
There's
that.
the concept of, well, now this person's expensive because they're mid to late career.
Yes.
And also, you might have been, we're a generation that went from no computers to the first computers. I am focusing on Gen X here, but, to technology. But there's a lot of skills that I feel are so valuable to society right now. How do you tell that story?
Yes.
How do you connect dots for a very square box thinking hiring process?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. You need to bypass the hiring process. Whenever you're making a career transition, the normal hiring process is not gonna work for you because there is bias, like you mentioned. There's ageism, there's not a connection based on the resume, all of these things happen. So you need to bypass that process, right? In the research process of understanding what the market says, that's where you're doing your networking, right?
Networking, yes.
That's where you're doing your networking. That's where you're understanding truly, okay, I've done my research on myself. I've done the research externally. I found all this stuff on the internet. Now I need to validate that it's true. In the validation process, when you're meeting people, that's when you're networking and you're fully understanding what problems people have, right? I use this amazing analogy with my clients about positioning themselves, right? You need to think of yourself like a salesperson.
I love that.
Right? You're a service provider, you're a salesperson, you are providing this service to an organization, right? If you were to, this is the analogy now, if you were to go to a car dealership, right? And you had two salespeople, and one person sat you down and told you all the features about a specific car, right? And you had another salesperson that started by asking you questions about yourself and immediately find out that you're a mom. They might sell you on the safety features.
Yeah.
Now you're selling based on value and problem solving rather than here's everything that's available in this car. And I think that is how we approach
job hunting.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, here's everything I've ever done. Pick and choose what works for you. If you're a service provider, you're only going to focus on the thing that matters to the person that's buying. And you can only do that if you know who this person is and you know what they're looking to buy, right? Which is why you're connecting with your hiring manager. This is why you're circumventing that whole process. If you don't know what the other person needs, then how do you position yourself to solve that problem?
That's a fair point. And on the networking side, it sounds cliche, but you can't do it enough. Can you give our listeners some specific guidance on that? Because I think, again, it can be scary. Now you're in a transition. You may have let go of some networking when you're in this, the safety, the humdrum, and also just the race of life.
Yes.
Who has time, right? So how do we embrace the networking and do it well?
Yes.
Because it's a big word. We hear it all the time.
It is. And I think that's what you said, right? It's a big word. We hear it all the time. Understanding that networking is it's not transactional. It's not do this, I'll do this, we'll scratch it. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
I think there's a very sort of weird understanding of networking in 2024. It's just building relationships and it's building connections.
Which you should always be doing.
That part, right? You should always be doing that. So I would say the first thing when you're approaching networking is changing your perspective on it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
If we're changing the perspective from like, what can I get from this person to who's this person? What do they care about? What are they working on? How can I learn? I'm trying to transition. I'm trying to learn about a new industry. I'm trying to learn about a new function. Then all of a sudden the conversation is not transactional. The conversation is, I'm here to learn.
Yeah. Curiosity.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely it. Right? And so and that will also help you determine like who you want to be connecting with. So you're not networking with everybody and anybody. You're connecting with people in the industries, in the roles that speak to you because you're trying to understand a new place. It's research, right?
Yeah. Now in this world, IRL, URL, the networking. So do you like LinkedIn as a tool, at least for first connections?
LinkedIn is my favorite app.
Yeah.
It is absolutely where I spend most of my time. It is unmatched in terms of like building your network.
I mean, that's how we met.
I know. It's unmatched. So I'll give you an example of how to use LinkedIn and community to really sort of supercharge your network. I remember there was a time where I wanted to make a career transition and I wanted to jump on the tech bandwagon.
Yeah.
So I'm not immune. I really wanted to jump on the tech bandwagon. And I was looking at my skill sets and the things that I was interested in. And I was like, you know what? I can talk, right? I'm a speaker. I can talk. I can persuade. I can encourage. I listen and problem solving. Sales seemed like the best sort of opportunity. I had also spent, this long career of mine working with technology companies. So I understood the lingo as well. So I was like, you know what? Tech sales, that's how I'm going to get in. That's how I'm going to get on the bandwagon. Did my LinkedIn thing, and I found a community called Black Women Sisters in Sales. It was specifically for Black women in B2B SaaS sales. It was extremely specific.
Yes.
I would not have found this group if it was not for LinkedIn, right? Within this group, they had an annual summit and then they had monthly check-ins. So going to these events every single month, they taught me the sales process. This is how you sell based on data and analytics. This is how you use some of these sales tools. This is how you build a funnel. So I did the learning aspect of it, right? And then they had like a recruiter night. So they brought in Salesforce and Twitter and Google and all these organizations to meet and mingle with their, their participants.
Right.
I ended up getting interviews at some of these top companies, never having worked in any of these areas. Like literally never having worked in any of these areas. And I'm like, there is no way that I would have access to this opportunity if I didn't connect with this group of people. Another thing that I learned was just what it was like to be in those environments, right? So one woman, we had like a sales and wellness night. One woman was talking about how she made $500,000 as her bonus in 1 year. So I was like, okay, it's lucrative. This is amazing. And then she told us she spent 2 to 3 months in the ICU that year.
Back to the Matrix.
There you go.
Maybe that doesn't sound so good now.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was really sort of like, oh, this is the real of what could happen, right? So I went in being like, this is an interesting area. I didn't start by, I need to fix my resume. I need to start applying for these jobs. I went in and I said, who's here? Who's in this space? Who can I speak to? It was from one of those networking conversations that I had on LinkedIn that someone said, oh, have you heard of this group? And I was like, no, I haven't. She showed me the group. We connected, we joined. And these women taught me everything that I needed to know about this industry and provided me with the opportunities to pivot. I ultimately decided that, I don't know, making tech companies richer was not something that I really, truly valued. So going back to my matrix, and decided not to go down that path, but I had full access to it.
Yeah, that's a really good concrete example.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like taking a time out. It feels like a timeout, but really it's not. So go a little slow.
You need to go
slow to end up where you need to end up.
Because it's not, we're not making rash decisions. You're making a life transition. Getting a new job is a life transition. It affects your entire life. I think it's too casual. The fact that you can apply to a job with one click on LinkedIn makes it too like Amazon like energy. Like just quick buy, put it in the cart, let's go. No, this is a life transition that you're making. You need to think about it. Right? And a lot of people give, the recruitment process a lot of flack.
Yes.
By like, oh, they make you do this and send in your resume and fill out the form and you got to interview. It's $100,000 decision. Sometimes a $200,000 decision. A company is not going to make that decision based on you clicking one button on LinkedIn. It doesn't make sense.
But it's very discouraging for the person trying to make the transition because it feels impersonal and it feels like, how do you show that value proposition we talked about? So your unique value proposition through a rigid recruiting process where it is just a resume that you first submit or pre-fill the forms, right? And you mentioned bypass that process. So again, in this era, and for this stage of life, how do you actually do that?
Yeah, so like I said, it's the networking, it's the finding the community. I promise you, there is a group and a community for anything that you're looking for. Okay. I have a list, and I compiled this list of 33 different industry communities that are split up based on like gender, industry, background, everything. So there's a community for something that you're looking for.
So that's a good takeaway.
And they host events, they do mentorship, they do connections, they have partnerships. This is the thing that people don't understand. And I worked in the partnership space in diversity recruitment, in recruitment specifically. A small organization that focuses on a small group of people, right? They have a lot of incentive to place you at these organizations. So RBC, TD Bank, one of these larger corporations, they're paying thousands of dollars to get people from smaller communities, right?
Okay.
So TD will pay a group like Black professionals in tech. They'll pay them $75,000 to say, hey, we need 4 people. You just have to sign up with Black professionals in tech, and you're in, and you're having conversations, and now you're in, through with a hiring manager that wants to hire you because they have an incentive. They're literally paying to go through this process, right? So my company is called Foot in the Door, but what I don't tell people is not just any door. You need to find the side doors. You need to, especially if you're making a career transition. The normal process is just not going to work. Do not waste your time.
Couldn't say it better. Valuable, find your community.
Exactly.
Find your way through the side door.
Exactly.
So that's loud and clear. Okay, how to leverage your experience. Women, it's written about repeatedly, tend to not apply to things or network or whatever the case may be if they don't fit 52,000 check boxes. Oh, I'm missing the one out of 52,000.
Yes.
I must not be right or a fit.
Yes.
Yeah. How do we get over that?
Yes. I spent a lot of years on the other side of the table looking at resumes and having conversations and meeting hiring managers. Most hiring managers don't know what they want. Most hiring managers have no idea the type of person they actually need, right? And if you think about it, that's all of us as consumers, right? You might say to yourself, oh, I need this thing, or I need to buy this thing. And then you go and you do your research and you're like, wait, I actually don't need this thing. This is what I need. But really and truly, the salesperson is selling you on the things that you need. We have a whole industry, all the things on Amazon, all the things on Instagram, TikTok, that we didn't know existed, but now we can't live without somehow, right? So this idea that the job description is like a deciding factor of what's happening, not true. The job description does a horrible job at telling you what to expect on the job. How many times? Look at your job description, look at my job description, and then look at the job that we're doing. Yeah. They're not the same.
No.
So it's not even real. So this idea that, oh, I need to check all these boxes, these aren't even the boxes they care about. I spent a whole career telling people, you need to be an apple, knowing that the hiring manager wrote on the box, they need oranges. And I'm like, hiring manager, you actually need an apple. You don't know this, but you actually need an apple. And you're an apple, but you're saying, no, but they asked for oranges. I'm not an orange. It's like, that's neither here nor there. This is why, again, if you circumvent the process and you talk to the actual hiring manager, you'll know what they need. I remember I was building my team, and before I went through the proper recruitment process through my company, I did like 12 or 13 interviews, just reaching out to people, active recruitment, reaching out to people that had posted on their LinkedIn something about building and team and all that stuff, right? The job description said I needed a career coach. So I was managing a career center and I needed coaches to support. The job description said I needed a career coach. The job description said that this person needed to have experience with career development. The job description said they needed a master's degree. The job description said this, that, and the other. But what I needed was someone that was entrepreneurial, because I was essentially stepping into this department that had been ravaged by COVID, meaning so many people had left that we needed to rebuild the entire department. So what I was looking for was someone that had an entrepreneurial mindset. I was looking for somebody that not only had career development like help, but someone that had an active network, because a huge part of being a career coach is having an active network that you can refer your clients into, right? It's not just, oh, here's how to fix a resume. It's like, here's how to fix a resume. My friend over at TD needs it. This is what I'm gonna say once it's fixed. That's the catalyst. That's why you come to me, because I have that network. Starting my career in recruitment, I connected with tons of recruiters, right? So I needed someone that was well connected. All of this stuff was not included on the job description.
Ibiyemi, it's been so encouraging to hear you. You're offering a sense of hope.
Yes.
And that you don't have to go through that rigid, cold process of job applications in a transition. How does one sustain motivation? Again, you're worried. Mm-hmm. This is repeated. I hear, I'm worried. I'm waking up at night. Mm-hmm. Am I gonna find that next thing?
Yes.
If you're now not working, and if you are working, you're still worried.
Yes.
And you're trying to do the day job, whilst looking for that next step.
Yes.
While doing everything else in life. Mm-hmm. How do we stay motivated? How do we stay on track?
Yes, you have to get extremely organized. You have to first have a plan, right? So I take my clients through a job search strategy that goes over everything from what is your routine, what are the professional development things that you need to be doing in your job search, what are the literal documentation things, your resume, your LinkedIn. You need to have a routine, you need to get organized with it. And then you need to be patient. I'm so sorry. There's no antidote to that. Making a life transition. Again, this happens in every sphere. When you're buying a home, when you're getting married, these are big changes. It takes time. It should take time if you think about it.
Yeah.
To really shift your life from one to another, it shouldn't be a 2-week process, right? I always say career transitions, like solid ones, 6 to 12 months.
Give yourself grace.
Give yourself that time. You need that patience, right? So once you get organized meaning have a job search strategy, you can work with a career coach to develop that for you. Be patient. And another thing is on the line of being patient is don't pull up your seed out of the ground before it had time to grow roots. This is what I see all the time. I tried it, it's not working, it's not yielding fruit, I'm just gonna try something else. No, hold on. You tried a new strategy. You need to give it time.
Ibiyemi, are there any resources, you've talked about LinkedIn, finding networks, any books or additional resources you can recommend?
Yes, absolutely. There is a great book by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. It's called Designing Your Life. And it came out of a Stanford class for undergraduate students and helping them to use the principles of design to really change their life. So things like radical collaboration, which is that networking aspect of things. So it's a career book, but it's also just a life transition book, and I absolutely love it.
Great.
Yes.
3 takeaways.
Reflection is really important when you're making a career transition, understanding sort of what you've done up to this point.
Yep.
Right? The next takeaway is really spending that time to figure out what you want to do next. So doing your research, connecting with people, getting a good understanding of where you want your life to go, because obviously what you're currently doing is not working, right? And then the third takeaway is don't ignore your body. Don't do it, right? You really need to pay attention to what's going on with you so that it's not a really sort of radical process to make that change and you discover it sooner.
Fantastic takeaways.
Yes.
Inspiring.
Thank you.
Your story leaves us, I know it leaves me feeling beautiful. What makes you feel beautiful?
Ooh, what makes me feel beautiful? Knowing that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm impacting people's lives. I'm leading with vulnerability. That makes me feel beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our couch today.
Thank you.
Mindset by Dweck. Yep, you've probably heard all about fixed versus growth mindset, but Dweck is the OG who put this idea on the map. Her book is packed with real-life examples that hit home, especially for mid-career transitions. One standout, how we handle feedback. A fixed mindset hears criticism and thinks, I'm terrible at this. A growth mindset says, hey, what can I learn and do better next time? It's such a simple shift, but it can change everything. If you're in a what's next phase, this book is your guide to embracing the messy process of growth. Short, sharp, packed with wisdom. Grab it now. Thanks for listening today. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The content shared here should not be considered professional medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider for personalized medical guidance. We're here to empower and support you, but your health decisions should be made with your own medical team. Until next time, take care and keep thriving.